On the second part of India Upfront, a literary forum in the capital was witness to an ugly face-off between Pakistan Indophile Tarek Fatah and those who disagreed with his liberal views. Yes, in fact, there were some who didn't even wait for Tarek Fatah to voice his opinion. Instead, they started objecting, according to sources, to his mere presence at the Urdu festival in the heart of the union capital. This was happening in Janpat. Ladies and gentlemen, why are these people so intolerant of a person who is a known liberal in the literary circle, a man who has raised his voice against hate mongers and terror sympathizers, a man who has actually unmasked Pakistan's dubious and devious designs in the subcontinent? Is that his crime, we ask tonight? Should he not be allowed to make his point freely and openly? And what happens? What happens in festivals such as this, which liberals say are forums for the free exchange of ideas? And where is that Medal Wapsi Brigade, which stood up and attacked other radicals for targeting intellectuals in other different forums? Where are they? Why aren't they speaking up for Tarek Fatah? Let's first listen in to what exactly transpired according to the version put out by Tarek Fatah himself. Let's listen in.
क्योंकि चुप खामोश से जो लोग बैठे हैं आज नहीं यहाँ नहीं आप इतिहास का वही पन्ना पलट रहे हैं। आप क्या नफरत फैला रहे हो? देखिए भाई धंधा करना है तो कहीं और जाके करो। देखिए एक ही काम है, आप एक आदमी एक आदमी बोल सकता है, आप में सिर्फ दंगा करते हैं आप लोग। एक आदमी बोल सकता नहीं, ये बहादुर है ना। ठीक है,
Well, you just saw those pictures. Tarek Fatah was trying to ask them, what is the logic behind insisting upon a name of a road, Aurangzeb Road? What's the logic? And he got only derision back. And you saw how intimidating those scenes were pushed around. So it's not the first time in Calcutta, even in the Punjab University in Chandigarh, where he was gagged and also beaten. And this really is very troubling, very, very troubling. Let's listen into some reactions. Some people have actually come out and tried to justify this violence. Ironically, those who speak up for individuals who were speaking up in praise of terrorists in JNU. Let's listen in. We also have the government responding to this. Let's listen into those reactions.
A lot of people who come there are extremely passionate people, passionate about language and the culture that language represents. Now, in every culture, subculture, there are things that other people like and agree with, and some things that you don't like, you disagree with. So if you disagree with something, you certainly have a right in a democracy to find the right platform to say that you disagree with it. You don't barge into their myths to say, I disagree with everything you're doing, unless you have a persuasive ability that is comforting in a way, and that's a persuasive manner that can get across even to your opponents.
Suffice to just say in a single sentence that this is perhaps the worst kind of intolerance displayed by a lobby which accuses others of intolerance. And therefore, if this is a sampling of the tolerance practiced by this lobby, one wonders to think what kind of tolerance they expect from others.
Well, you just heard the MOS PMO criticizing this so-called liberal lobby for demonstrating intolerance. Double standard, hypocrisy ruled perhaps on Janpat there. Tarek Fatah, author with us this evening. He's the one who was roughed up Ashok Pandit, director and activist, and Gohar Gilani, political analyst. Let me first begin by asking you, Mr. Tarek Fatah, you weren't persuasive enough, says Salman Khurshid. You actually jumped in there to try and provoke these individuals. How would you describe that view? How do you respond to it?
I've been persuasive enough to have met Salman Khurshid when he was foreign minister and persuade him about the evil designs of Pakistan on India. I find it deeply troubling that a man of his intellect, and I have deep admiration for him, I consider him one of India's finest Muslim leaders, that he would have to bend over backward to justify and apologize for a fascist attitude. This wasn't intolerance, this is fascism, Hitler style.
But you weren't invited to this event. You went to witness it.
I came there just to buy some books. I was told a day earlier that there were some splendid books in Urdu that had been published, and that's why this entire incident took place near the book stands. What troubled some of my critics is that there were, in all modesty, there were about hundreds of people who came up to get photographed with me. Most of them were Muslim, most of them were women, young children, kids, and some of the men, especially in Orthodox attire, some people who had, that gave Rekhta an Islamic festival look rather than an Urdu look. They were there, and their hostility immediately pounced. It was quite well orchestrated because you can't get 100 people in a couple of minutes gathered, and Modi ka kutta, Tarek Fatah, those slogans, death to Tarek Fatah, it's very orchestrated. The discussion was between one gentleman who said, were you involved in the changing of the road name from Dalhousie Road to Dara Shikoh? And I said, if it was for me, I would change every name where there's Lodi and Tughlaq and erase it from the map of India, because those who destroyed the temples of Kashi have no place on my motherland.
There you go. Gohar Gilani, how can that be objectionable? Somebody is raising a point backed by a certain amount of historic fact, and you seem to have big problems, people such as you. Is Mr. Tarek Fatah making you uncomfortable because he holds up the mirror to a certain section, hardline section, a fundamentalist section of Islam? Is that what the problem is?
I for one would have liked that Mr. Tarek Fatah was given a patient hearing and he was allowed to speak whatever he wanted to say. Because I have no problems in listening. I listen to him, and I disagree with him. I disagree with most of his views, but I will always love to host him, and I also host him in Srinagar and deliver a talk. There's no problem in listening to the other view. I read a piece on Scroll which mentioned about this incident, because I'm not in Delhi, so I don't know what exactly happened, but I just read a piece and which said certain things that police also manhandled him, and I think that's very sad, that's very unfortunate, and it should be condemned and deplored that he should not have been manhandled. And if there are people have other views, they should also be allowed to express their views. But as far as Mr. Tarek Fatah's intellectual capabilities and intellectual insights are concerned, I'm very pleased that when he raises questions of injustice regarding Balochistan, but I'm amazed that he remains silent when it comes to Kashmir. So these are the
not
double
silent,
standards
sir.
Which people often
I want Pakistan out of Pakistan occupied Kashmir. I'm not silent. Baltistan is an integral part of Kashmir and an integral part of India. Anyone who has any doubts about that,
about Kashmir.
Anyone who has any doubts about whether Gilgit-Baltistan is a part of India or not,
you cannot be
better go elsewhere.
No, but Mr. Gohar Gilani, tell me something.
You consider it to be part of Pakistan?
How many marches have you taken out condemning what is happening in
Mr.
POK.
Tarek Fatah,
No, I'm
I
asking
did not
you.
interrupt you when you were
One
speaking.
second,
So
Mr. Gilani, can I ask you a question?
You to be very patient.
This is Rahul Shivshankar here. Mr. Gilani, can I ask you a question? Very small question, sir. How many marches have you taken out in favor of POK nationals who have been beaten black and blue, murdered, butchered on the streets of Muzaffarabad? I want to ask you, sir, how many marches have you taken out, Mr. Gilani? And how many pieces have you written in condemnation of Pakistan's occupation?
I do not take marches. I'm not an organizer of the marches, but I do support all movements which are based on historicity and context, and which are based on justice. And I do write in my writings.
So Gilgit-Baltistan is not part of India.
That I raise my voice whenever there is oppression.
No, should Pakistan not walk out of POK?
It's your view. I do not agree with you. It's your view, but I will not shout.
Why do you not agree with me? Isn't it Indian land, sir?
You can say.
Are you not an Indian, sir? Look, I am not here. I am not here to judge your patriotism. But sir, neither am I. I'm only asking a simple question. Are you not Indian, sir?
You should not.
And do you not feel aggrieved?
I'm not judging you. How can you judge me?
Well, you're saying it's part of Pakistan.
But you're saying it's part of Pakistan.
It has a context. And
China has occupied Gilgit-Baltistan and you're celebrating it. You should be, people should be ashamed of themselves who come on television, on Indian networks and defend the government of Pakistan's position. Sir, and then come back and accuse me of being an ISI agent.
Can I ask you a small question?
When did I defend that?
No, Mr. Gilani, do terrorists who come across the LOC from Pakistan, no, let me finish.
Yes.
Do they not kill innocents? Do they not kill, sir, panchayat heads and leaders? Do they deserve to be brutally murdered in front of their family? I'm asking you, does that not happen, sir? Mr. Gilani?
Who are the terrorists you are referring to? I didn't get your question. Please ask again.
The Lashkar-e-Toiba, the Hizbul Mujahideen.
I didn't get you. The voice was breaking.
I mean, well, I don't know which hole you've been living in, but let me, okay. The Lashkar-e-Toiba, the Hizbul Mujahideen. Is the Lashkar-e-Toiba, sir, indigenous movement, sir?
What is your view on what has happened in Kashmir because of what Indian Army and Indian security forces have done over the last 29-30 years? What's your view on that?
They maintain law. They maintain law and order, sir, which is a primary function of the Indian state. Now, if you have a problem with that,
as a human being,
well, if you have a problem with that, then, sir, perhaps.
As a human being,
no, one second, sir.
Or you only see
I am a humanist. I am a humanist. I believe that violence in any capacity. Excuse me, sir, if you allow me to speak, I'll tell you. I believe that violence in any capacity, whether directed against Hindus, Muslims, is violence. It's violence. I am not sitting here and carrying a briefcase for anyone. I think maybe, sir, you're carrying a briefcase for somebody, and I need to understand why is it such a problem that when Mr. Tarek Fatah goes to Bengal and he is called by a club to actually, let me finish.
Don't throw verbal volleys at me. I can do the same.
I'm not throwing verbal volleys, sir. You said you wanted to engage in a debate.
Don't throw these verbal volleys at me.
How am I being uncivil, sir? I'm only making...
I'm not impressed.
Oh,
I'm not impressed.
So you're being you're playing the victim card. So we can't have a debate here because you're not impressed by verbal volleys. I don't know how I can use sign language with you, sir. I'm happy to even use that.
I'm saying I will host both you and Mr. Tarek Fatah in Kashmir, in Srinagar, but let's have a debate.
Yeah, but you can't guarantee our safety, sir, because you endorse violence. It's pretty clear. You endorse violence because you have no problem with the illegal occupation of Pakistan of a part of Kashmir. Now, one second. Mr. Ashok Pandit, well, sir, it's quite clear. If you're not standing up against it, why don't you condemn Pakistan for the violence in POK? I'm asking you. Be upfront on this show.
He can't even condemn violence in Delhi.
He can't condemn violence in Delhi as disputed territories. That's our view.
Who said it's disputed territory? Who said
you're a second conflict?
Who said it is disputed territory, sir?
I'm saying it.
The United Nations Security Council says Pakistan has to withdraw from there. It's not disputed. It is disputed for Islamabad and its touts.
Why is it in the United Nations Security Council if it is not a dispute, sir?
No, it is not disputed.
If it is not a dispute, why is it?
It is not a dispute. You are occupying Indian territory. And when I say you, I mean people who are Pakistani as a state of mind. People who live in India but hold Pakistani flags. Shame on them.
Well,
Carry
Mr.
on
Gilani,
with
you
your
can
verbal
laugh
volley.
about it.
I
You
don't-
can
I
laugh
don't
about
mind
it because
Come on.
it's quite clear you've been outflanked and now you want to play the victim. I just want to bring in
I
Ashok
laugh
Pandit.
about it
Ashok
because you have
Pandit.
no argument. You have no,
Ashok
no
Pandit,
argument.
Ashok
Mr. Tarek
Pandit,
Fatah is
you actually have a
referring to
right.
Kashmir
Okay,
and
excuse me,
saying
Mr.
about
Gilani.
United Nations resolutions.
Okay.
Why are there resolutions
Okay,
in
excuse
United
me.
Nations resolutions if it is not a dispute?
What is the United Nations
Do you
resolution?
even know the
No,
do you know
let
the
me
first step?
ask
Do
him,
you know the
what
first
is the
step?
article number 1?
Absolutely. Let me ask him that. What is article number 1? And do you know that if the United Nations resolutions have to be put into practice, Pakistan has to withdraw its
do you
illegal
know Mr.
occupation,
Pandit Jawaharlal
its
Nehru?
forced
Have you heard about
occupation.
Mr.
No,
Pandit
this is
Jawaharlal
documented. Go and
Have you
read your
heard about
history.
Mr. Pandit
Don't talk
Jawaharlal
rot
Nehru?
on national TV.
Have you ever
One
heard his
second.
speech in
Mr.
Lal
Ashok
Chowk
Pandit,
in
Mr. Ashok
Srinagar?
Pandit, one second.
You
I want to
please
bring
go
you
on
in on
YouTube,
this.
type
Here we have a very
www.youtube.com
strange situation. So-called liberals who wear their credentials here, right here on their chest, are having a problem trying to stand up for an individual who calls a spade. He's not allowed to speak in Calcutta in a plush club because the club buckles under government pressure, allegedly, because they believe that taking on Pakistan there will create a law and order situation.
Unbelievable.
He is beaten black and blue in Chandigarh because there are certain individuals who take grave offense to him calling actually terrorists. What is happening?
Rahul, recently we saw a similar example where Sanjay Leela Bhansali was heckled and the entire nation stood up. All the liberals, all the pseudo-seculars, people from the media, a lot of people from the industry and apart from the industry, including me, we condemned it. We said this is not allowed and this is not done. Now the entire generation of people, all those people who stood up, people from the media, as if the country lost its independence, you know, the way Bhansali was attacked, and we supported it. Now my pain is that same very people who think and who claim to be very educated people who believe, who in nationalism and freedom of expression and secularism and democracy and all those kind of heavy words are silent today. You might not be agreeable to what Mr. Tarek Fatah says, but you cannot keep silence. For me, the biggest enemy today in this country are the people who are silent on the issues which doesn't suit them. Now coming to Mr. Gahar, he says that Mr. Tarek Fatah has been silent on Kashmir issue. I want to state here very honestly and very clearly that I thank Tarek Fatah that he has exposed all those people who claim to be Muslims but have abused Islam right, left and center. Misguided people. Mr. Tarek Fatah has spoken every day in and out on Kashmiri Pandits. He has spoken about the victimization of Kashmiri Pandits. He has spoken about my genocide and my ethnic cleansing. He has not remained silent. And we need such people.
So I want to ask you
in this country.
Okay, one second, sir.
The problem
one
here
second.
is,
I want to ask you, Mr. Tarek Fatah,
that all those
why do
people
these
who stand exposed
hardliners?
Why do
these hardliners, in your view, Mr. Tarek Fatah, why do these hardliners have it out for you? Because Mr. Gilani says that, you see, you are a headline hunter, etc., etc. Well, why do they have it out for you, sir?
I think for 70 years, the leadership of India's Muslim community has blackmailed the majority population into a subservience where no policy of the government of India can be put in place until and unless the veto of as low-lying a person as the Shahi Imam of Delhi or the Shahi Imam of Calcutta. Imagine you still have people going by the word Shahi Imam as if we were still living under the Mughal Empire, that they will sanction and agree to any government. We are living in a time that started with Mr. Maulana Azad being told that you can only run for elections from Rampur because you are a Muslim. So this Muslim vote bank issue, number two, to say that only people with beards and yards of cloth all over them are authentic Muslim, and that people who are not ugly are not representative of the Muslim community. And that mirror I'm showing to them.
And that mirror is throwing up an image of intolerance. and perhaps a certain radicalism which they don't want to accept. And therefore you have the Gohar Gilanis of the world, etc., etc., and several others, the JNU League, all quiet, stunned. We'll take a short break. Lots more coming up right after. Stay with us.